Yep.
All right, all set.
I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Scarborough Town Council Communications Committee meeting. Like the records show that Councilor Scott Doherty, Councilor John Anderson, and myself, Councilor April Seither, are here in attendance today. I will be chairing the meeting in response to the resignation of Councilor Cushing. But we have an election coming up just next week, and so this will just be a temporary fix for now. Public comment, we don't have anybody in the room this afternoon. I don't know if we have anyone online.
We do, Allison Bristol.
Hello, Allison. Welcome.
Here. Allison, can you?
Yeah, I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Hi, everybody. A couple of things I wanted to call in on. First of all, I believe I'm correct in saying as of yesterday, the agenda for this meeting was not posted online. And given the density of the survey and what the discussion is today, between that and being down a committee member, and I'm making the assumption that whoever gets elected next week will fill in the slot. I think that the discussion, and April, I see you shaking your head. But anyway, this has not been seen by the public until I think today. As of yesterday at 4 o'clock, I don't think it was posted. So I would respectfully ask that this survey conversation be tabled until the public has a chance to take a look at it and perhaps weigh in on the content. The other thing I wanted to share, and John and April, I think we've talked about this in the past, is with information, where people find information, if it's on the town calendar, if it's on the various committee tabs, and I'll explain where I'm coming from. So, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also kind of wearing my Higgins Beach Association hat. So I'm the community affairs liaison on the Higgins Beach Association board, and I make it a point of communicating out what's happening in town so people are aware, and not editorializing, just saying this is coming up, this is coming up. If you're interested, click here, click there, that kind of thing. So it's not editorializing or taking a position, it's just making people aware and information available. So I want to say it was last week, the Community Affairs Advisory Board had their special meeting where they voted on what they were going to put forward to the ordinance committee in terms of the revisions to the animal control ordinance. And so over Memorial Day weekend, I started to craft something to send out saying this is happening. Here's where you find the agenda. Here's how you can participate online. Here's how you can view only. And the click here to view and participate link took you to the Google Doc that was the changes to the ordinance, didn't get you into the meeting. So I waited till Tuesday. I reached out to Karen, since she's the council liaison. She got it fixed. And then at 5 minutes to 7, the night of the meeting, I started getting phone calls and emails that the link I had took you to the May 8th Community Affairs Advisory Board. So, and I know you both know this has happened before because I've called it out before, but I wanted to call it out again. And if there is some way in the process of posting things online, just as a general rule of thumb, to check links before it gets, before or as soon as it gets posted. And that's it. I mean, that's the important thing, because nothing is more, if you're trying to engage people, nothing is more irritating than for them to click on something and they can't get to what they think they're going to get to. So anyway, I wanted to share that because I know you want to be aware of it, and it's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again, but it would be great to have some kind of protocol in place so we make sure links or take people to where they're supposed to go. And that's all. And I'll see you all at, is it 5:30, the workshop?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you later. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Allison.
Yep.
Just to respond to Allison's comments for the record, when we have a new counselor join, I have a feeling that we're gonna have I'll have a conversation with whoever it is that gets elected and find out where their interests lie. And so I just don't want the community assuming that we're just gonna plug the new person in. Wherever Counselor Cushing was, there may be some need to move some people around, if there's willingness of other counselors to do that. And then just in regard to the posting of links and the agendas, I trust that staff heard the concerns, and I don't know what protocols are in place or not, but it's certainly something that I agree with Allison, that's frustrating when you go to a link, but I also understand like sometimes that happens, and so.
Yeah, we can certainly put out a general reminder to clerk's office and Tony and myself to check links beforehand. And I absolutely agree with Allison. I mean, can you imagine wanting to participate in a meeting and the link my impression is that was an earlier link, that was the faulty link, not the one on the website, but and sometimes that does happen, but making sure that that's been, checked. In terms of the community survey, I'll speak with the clerk's office. My understanding was that that was posted last week when the agenda went up, but I can certainly look into that for the purposes of today, because I think sort of staff is bringing this forward as a discussion item. It's simply to start the conversation, and I want to talk a little bit more about the process and timeline. So nothing will be decided. My position is nothing's going to be decided out of this committee today, but certainly starting a conversation about what the purpose and background was and what I envisioned for the timeline would be helpful.
Okay. Moving on in our agenda, item 4 is approval of the minutes from April 17th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, show that as unanimous. Item 5 is staff updates, discussion and consideration of new print opportunities update and our emergency communication protocol update.
Yeah, I can start with the new print opportunities. So this all started when we heard the update that the leader wasn't going to be printed anymore. So we had to pivot and think of other opportunities to be able to get the word out and provide town updates in a print format, knowing that there's not necessarily a 1-for-1 of a newspaper replacement that's going into homes every week, but we started conversations with the Gorham Weekly publication. They are distributed in local spots throughout town, not mailed, but available for pickup. And so we sat down with them just to see what their distribution was, what their interest in either a partnership or some early opportunities to start working with them. And we found right away that they submit anyone can submit content. So that's an opportunity where we can just start sending them articles that we did like for the leader or that we have in the newsletter. And it would reach, they reach Gorham, Scarborough, and some other surrounding towns. Yeah, more inland and south. So that was the first starting point. And then we also talked with them about the opportunity for their business model if they would want to expand into this region, knowing that Cape Elizabeth and South Portland and Scarborough aren't getting the leader anymore, and the advertising space that was in the leader being open for opportunities. So we checked in with communications people from Cape and South Portland to see if they would have interest in contributing, knowing that this is a contributor only, not no journalists or anything. So there was interest there, and then we talked with Karen at Sedco to see if there would be interest from the business community for doing advertising through them, and that's kind of where we have it now, is doing this preliminary research before we come back to Gorham Weekly and see what their further interest is.
Yeah, and I think just to echo some of Allison's comments, I mean, it's clear it's not going to be a like replacement. It's not going to be mailed to every home in Scarborough the way the leader was. But I think part of our sort of assessment of the void that the leader created was a need for easily accessible, print-free news and information. And so in that regard, I think this certainly would be better than nothing. I think far better than nothing, because I think it would be accessible at many, it could be accessible at many different locations. So the short-term opportunity is I'm not sure if we have, but we will moving forward in the interim provide Scarborough content to the Gorham Weekly, which we hope will be featured in that periodical. I don't think that they have a tremendously large distribution base in Scarborough now. I mean, I think that Scarborough Hannaford's and things like that. But when we look at Scarborough Living, which obviously is a quarterly magazine, I think she asserts that she has like 100 locations. I don't think the reach is that. But again, I think that there may be an opportunity here to leverage their infrastructure and their relationships. The Press Herald, who prints their newspaper, it's a weekly newspaper. And again, they not only have the Gorham Weekly, which has been running for 4 or 5 years.
And here's an example. Yeah, I think it started in 2019.
But they also have the Lewiston Auburn Times, again, that's not the name of it, but that's another weekly newspaper that's been going for 30 years, and they're the ones that have pulled that together. So I think that there's certainly some interest from our colleagues in South Portland and Cape to produce content. I think that there's a real opportunity for Scarborough, South Portland businesses to have an advertising opportunity. And if we can kind of put all those pieces together and serve that up to the business owners, maybe there was an opportunity to launch a third in LA, Gorham, and then maybe a tri-town newspaper here that I think could be really, really helpful to again fill that void. But that's where we stand. We've had some conversations. I think I think that we expect to have an update at the next meeting. We are going to reconnect with the Gorham Weekly editors to share with them what we found out and what we've heard from our neighbors and what we're hearing from our business community, and kind of take it from there. But it's encouraging to be, this is something that wouldn't require a town contribution. Their whole business model is based on advertising. So again, I think there's a good opportunity here to expand our reach.
And it's already great that they are distributing in Scarborough to begin with, so people wouldn't get in their mailbox, but at least they can pick it up. The downside is that being called Gorham Weekly.
Gorham Weekly.
Yeah, it's kind of
Thought that too.
makes it, I don't know what they're, like how many people pick up from Scarborough or anything like that, but that's kind of where we saw the opportunity to, if they would want to start something new.
I like the idea of the Scarborough, South Portland, Cape approach. Is it, even though I know it's distributable, I know there's the Gorham Times too, so I get them confused sometimes. Is this the one where you can still ask for it to be mailed to you if you want? Like you have to opt into it?
They didn't say that. But maybe that's the Gorham Times.
Maybe the Times.
Yeah.
Because one of them, I think it's the same model of they distribute, but if you want it mailed to your door, you can do that.
Yeah, and my assessment is that the owners largely, again, they spend a lot of their time on the advertising revenue portion of the business. It seems like they do employ an editor, but that's mostly to organize space. They're not doing any. So again, it doesn't have the same appeal of a journalistic,
Sure.
but again, I think that there's a real opportunity to get some print content and information out to people.
I think it's probably, it'd be labor intensive, whatever, but just the agenda mailed to every household would probably be a big job, but I think that would be a good thing if everybody got it in the mail, and it's like you've got it and you open it up, and you look, oh, this is what's happening, and I think they, look at it and read it then, otherwise, just tune into the meetings and stuff, people just get so bored.
Right.
They're not gonna do it.
Yeah, and admittedly, Scott, I'm not as familiar with postage rates, but even if it was a postcard, even at 25 cents a piece, if you're talking about 6,000 households, I mean, you're talking about $1,500
Right.
every other week.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
quick.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only just the cost of that, but the labor to do it too.
But I share,
Yeah.
I share the aspiration of how do we
Yeah.
make
Something
people get that information right to people's
Right,
doors,
right, that would be good, but I guess it's not feasible.
So they So basically, anybody in town who wanted to contribute to this, they would submit an article. And
And their editor chooses what goes in.
so
So-
would they also, like, if somebody wanted to put something in that was like what,
Controversial?
yeah, what kind of,
I expect that there's some editorial oversight that
Yeah.
they're not gonna produce. I mean, and they're very upfront. They said, look, you know, we get content from people who advertise heavily and they get kind of priority over just the regular town news, and that's certainly understandable.
Mhm.
But yeah, I expect that they're not they certainly said they're not printing everything they receive. They
Okay.
are being selective about it, but they did seem, to their credit, seem very receptive to receiving, especially if we're talking about an article in addition. You know, I think they're pretty receptive to adding that content into the regular
Mhm.
run. I just think it's. Right, I don't think that a lot of Scarborough people are gonna pick up the Gorham Weekly to look for their Scarborough news. So
Right.
that's hence, I think, one, there's a great opportunity here with the void left. And selfishly, I'd love to see something that's more specific to Scarborough, South Portland, Cape, which seems like the tri-county area
Yeah.
that has some community to it.
I guess would they commit to doing the agenda,
Mm.
council agenda every 2 weeks? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would they just say, yeah, we'll do that, we'll print that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Could
That's a
ask.
good question.
Could
Yeah,
ask.
certainly. Yeah, there's no harm to asking.
Yeah,
I think that'd be good to your point, like, just to say what's coming,
right,
so people know. That's where I think the Gorham Times, they actually do something like that,
right, right.
but.
I don't mean to be negative and not have a solution, but the reality is that our agenda is set on or
Yeah,
printed on Friday.
I know.
And then the
That's
paper
another
would need to be
difficult-
distributed, and then we have our meeting the following Wednesday.
right.
And so I
Yeah.
think,
So-
I think it's more a logistics challenge than it is right? We don't have the content for the agenda
Right.
in
Guess
time
just
to
the
get it
meeting
to
date.
print.
Yeah.
I
Right,
think that's why,
yeah,
But I guess one thing that I've heard from you, Scott, and I've heard from others as well, is this sort of, without being insulting but, you know, sort of like a layman's
Layman's-
description of what, like, and we probably realistically, more often than not, could say at least what what the issues are on the agenda are going to be that will likely drive some public interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we could say, we're considering a housing, we may not get into what the order number is or what the
Right.
specific
Right.
proposal is, but.
right.
Or even if you qualify it with,
Yeah,
you know,
generally.
potentially going to consider a discussion on a housing, affordable housing project, that might generate some.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
I think, yeah, I mean, it's more like projecting a month out.
Yeah.
What's on the docket, because we generally, like, the details of a massage parlor license, like, that's not important, but like. To your point, like the big things
Right.
that might draw public interest, I think we generally know.
yeah, I mean, we've had a workforce, I mean, our affordable housing workshop on the agenda,
Scheduled,
you know,
right.
for months.
So the and the no could go in this that we used to do.
Yeah, and I still am submitting that to the online leader, but I could use that content to send to the Forum Weekly
Yeah.
too.
Does
Great.
Cape Elizabeth have a paper similar to this?
They have the Cape Court Courier.
Okay, and
Uh,
that's print pickup and again, just submission based.
I believe so, and Karen.
They might have one journalist.
Oh, maybe, yeah, and Karen was familiar with it because she lives in Cape
Okay.
and seemed like that paper had a pretty good following.
Mhm.
Also in terms of advertising revenue, not to cut Cape out of it, but their commercial property tax base and businesses just isn't anything
Sure.
compared
Yeah.
to Scarborough and South Portland, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to include Cape again, just based on the geographic relationship, but I think that's something that needs to be seen.
Sure.
So that's one thing we're working on, and I think the other thing,
Yeah, before the emergency one is, we've been working with Scarborough
Yeah.
Living too, to see if there's opportunity with, with her magazine to do some sort of Scarborough feature, and we were first talking about like, is that we already have the contributing article a day in the life of a staff member, but trying to see if there's a way to do more with her magazine, especially since she's going to 6 times a year, every other month. So we worked with the printer. She's been really receptive to the idea of doing an insert that's separate, standalone from the magazine. And it's more just town designed content. It'd be 4 pages and similar to the Gorham Weekly. It's like distributed in the places it is, not mailed or anything, but it would give the town a standalone space to develop content that's kind of a little bit longer term or more of just like overarching topics, not as much week to week,
Yeah.
but thinking more thematically about like if the issue is coming out in August, what's going to be happening that's like summertime related or things like that. And it's kind of piggybacking off the idea we had to do a mailer maybe like 2 or 3 times a year to houses. And that just kind of felt restrictive based on the cost. And so this felt like a good in-between next step of not doing a mailer quite yet, but having it still in print and that sort of like content, but not having to pay for postage and just seeing how it goes in here first. So they gave a couple options of doing one that's like a little bit smaller, insert in the centerfold, or one that's also in the centerfold, but it's the full page and it's more of like
More
a
of a map than-
stock paper versus the glossy. So all that to say, Kate with Scarborough Living has been really receptive to this idea and partnering on this. And we're making it a goal to get something into her, I think it is the August issue. At least as a starting point to see kind of what the response is to that, how it works. And it's just something new for us, so it'd be a cool opportunity to try.
So although it's not going to every household the way a mailer would, I think we can have a 4-page insert in probably all 6 issues on an annual basis for about the same price as one mailer.
Mhm.
So it's much more cost effective. And again, it's another print vehicle to get town provided content and information out to the public. And, you know, she runs a 5,000 to 7,000 print run for each
Yeah.
edition. And so that's a good, and it seems to be really well received and so I think that's another good print option that we're gonna move forward with.
Another one, just comes to mind is a box right over here in front of the town hall with a mailer, like a mailer,
Mhm.
but you don't mail it, just
Mhm.
people can just
Yeah.
drive through.
It's a
You
good
can
idea.
just drive up and say,
Yeah,
it's really
standalone.
quick, I can drive up, go up to this mailbox, grab one and go.
Right. And we've also, that's a great idea, Scott.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've also talked about was exploring, again, whether it's sort of like a version of the work that Allison will do with Scarborough Living, but a printed version that we'd be willing to mail to homes upon request. So again, we're not mailing 6,000 of them, but maybe if there's a few hundred that people request that, again, where we're not recreating the content, but we could send it out to people who request it. That's another thing that I think we're
Yeah,
willing to
because,
explore as well.
6,000 of them are gonna get filed in the trash.
We hope not all 6,000, but we think a large portion of them will make it
So,
to the
yeah,
recycling bin,
yeah,
yeah.
so it doesn't make
Right.
sense to.
We hope they at least digest the headline.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
But I like your point about having it here too, because if I'm already making this.
Right.
And I could just print
just
some,
have the thing out here, then
yeah,
say it at the council meeting, let them know, we let it advertise it somehow that it's there. If you want it, you just swing in, it's easy.
Yeah.
If we're doing something in the August issue and it's before Summerfest.
Yeah.
That might be a good place to hand them out to say,
oh yeah, that's
this
true.
is a new thing you can find.
Not for us,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be before Summerfest, because I'm
Yeah.
doing some things about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
And we do
idea.
need a table at Summerfest.
Sure.
And one of the things that I was thinking about too is like, it would be good to kind of figure out where are we now for the e-newsletter?
Mhm.
Where do we want to go? And what do we want to do? Because I still think the e-newsletter is the best.
Yeah, hopefully
Town
all of this
thing.
content
Yeah,
drives people to sign up for the newsletter.
okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's the lowest cost option. It's the best content. It's the most regular, up-to-date information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there will continue to be, and we did, anything else, and did take out some ad space with Scarborough Living as well.
Yeah.
And plugging
I know.
the newsletter the way we did with the last few editions of the year. There's gonna be an opportunity to run that in Warren Weekly as well, but, yeah, that's the preferred method, and that's what we'd ask you to push at Summerfest too.
Yeah.
We're gonna promote.
Mhm.
Anything else on that, Allison?
nope,
Okay. Just, guys have any other questions or thoughts?
It's awesome.
So just briefly on the emergency communications protocol, so this was kind of born out of, one, I think it's a legitimate need to codify kind of how we handle emergency communications when we have an ongoing emergent event or any other thing. And I think what I said last time was, I think in general, Tom and I do a pretty good job letting the council specifically, you know, as it pertains to you, know about things that might have some public concern. But we are looking to codify that in a policy, which will be far, kind of like the communications policy, it'll be far more reaching than just how we interact with the council. So that work is underway. It's kind of in the hands of our public safety department. Right now, they're gonna be working up a draft. Allison will review it, we'll make some other changes, but I'm happy to bring that back at a future meeting, just so you guys can see where we're at and get some feedback specifically to the relationship to the town council on this events.
Mhm.
Okay.
How does it work when you sign up for the towns? Is
Code
it
Red?
alert? Yeah,
Yeah.
Code Red. Like, does the school and that integrate when there's a school thing? And that, because again, as a parent, I got all the updates from the school. I got nothing from the town, and I don't, because we have that joint emergency
Yeah, I
group.
just did that last Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever that meeting was. It didn't specifically come up whether the
Yeah.
two systems were integrated, so you asked your question a week too late for me to be able to have that on. So I don't know I don't know how those two systems communicate with one another.
I think the short answer is they probably don't.
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the school department controls their sort of emergency communication system, and this one is usually for very different purposes. So is there an opportunity to integrate those things? You know, maybe, probably. I think that the policy, I think, certainly needs to speak to school events. And whether there should be sort of simultaneous communications across all those channels. I think that's something we'll better
Okay.
evaluate. But the police chief and fire chief, I know, have active roles on that committee, are
Yep.
obviously tracking this as well. Community survey. You want to start, Allison?
Sure.
So included in the packet is the last community survey that we undertook. It's largely, there were a few changes, a few adds, a few revisions from the original 2021 survey. And so what I would propose for a timeline is I would like, and this has been distributed to the senior leadership team, and departments are working on their respective sections to look at what questions they're asking. Are there additional opportunities for community input? We largely want to retain the majority of the questions, just so we can see sort of that's year over year or biannual kind of tracking. But I think from my perspective, I would like this committee to recommend or approve a survey by your August meeting. Because I would like the survey to launch across the community by roughly September 1. It's a 6 to 8 week process. And so my goal is to land the final report on sort of the council dais in November, probably the second meeting in November, so that this is just after the new council is seated. And you will have all the information and community input, which will hopefully inform not only the work for the next council session, but also the goals for the following year. So that's sort of, it was a little bit late last time. I think we landed in the end of December. So I'd like to just move that up and hit that November target date. And what the council decides to do with the feedback or input is obviously up to the council, but that's my goal. And so that's a timeline I think we really need to follow. So this is June, we'll have a July meeting. And then hopefully August, we approve any changes.
And as far as communications for it, we're looking at starting in early July, I've been looking at the results from the last survey and just seeing like what stands out from the community, and I want to start populating social media posts about that as a way to just remind people what the response was and what we've been doing in the past 2 years since then, just as a way to start talking about the survey again. And then we'll use that as a teaser for the fall, the survey coming in the fall. And then starting at like mid-July, mid-August, doing more full articles about that update, but just doing some like preview beforehand.
Right.
But we'll start talking about it sooner rather than later.
And again, this isn't a specific figure, but something to the effect of, you know, X percentage said they had concerns with traffic. Here's what we've done in the last 2 years for traffic, right? So it's a good opportunity to also promote the work that has been done since that time, and really underscore and highlight that your feedback and input is really important, because it really does inform and drive a lot of the council's decision making. And so I think there's probably also some shameless self-promotion there that we'll highlight as well. Well, that's my goal anyway.
Yeah, I kind of have it in sections of like, applauding the work that we've done and showing off the high results, like the more positive stuff, and then showcasing like what are some things that we've been working on since then, and what's more that's in the works or in the initial planning stages, but not actively done yet.
It's an opportunity to reiterate some of those key messages that we've been talking about for the last few years.
I forget. What her name is on staff that does a lot of the senior work and,
Gail?
Yeah.
Gail.
Yep.
Is she, because I had mentioned, because it had come up that she tried to do a survey for seniors to get some feedback and didn't get the best return, so I suggested maybe she wait till this comes back and see if she can get a few questions added, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep, so her department head has it,
Okay.
it will be a subject of ongoing conversations at the senior leadership team level, and I've encouraged them to work with their staff to
Okay.
get some of that input.
Library has it.
Yeah,
Library has
they
it,
have
school
it.
department will have
Our
it.
library was,
They wanna,
I think, the survey changed the most in regards to the library last time from the first one to the second one, because they were in front of a referendum the first time around, and then they had some things that they wanted to change for the second time around. And I know that was one of the things that we changed kind of late in the process, and so making sure that,
at the
Our
last
key
trustee
departments
meeting,
have it.
it came up that they have it and that they're gonna likely overhaul it again because
Okay.
it's different leadership and they want to make sure that they are asking the right questions, so I anticipate
okay,
them.
as long
providing
as it's
the-
on their radar, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Trips to learn.
And boards and committees had it last time too.
What about the growth stuff? Because I remember last time, right, we changed it to add the section on to give us feedback
Perspectives
on,
around growth.
yeah, I'm just,
And we called out specific.
yeah, I'm just curious, because we always get into this quandary of like, people say they want affordable housing, but do they really mean the affordable housing? And we're about to have an affordable housing workshop. I just don't know if that's an area in particular that we also want to focus and fine tune to make sure that we're asking the questions the right way to better delineate, like, do you think your home's not affordable because your taxes are so high and it's now $800,000 when like 10 years ago it was $200,000? Like, that's a different concern or perception than, do we need more low income affordable housing? And we have that
Right.
question in here too. I just don't know if people
Yeah,
Like the
delineate.
interpretation
Yeah.
of what, affordable.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think that's something to better understand and rework this time around, because I think you're right. I think that as much as just in the last few meetings, we've talked about the community feedback on, affordable and workforce housing being too slow, not being whatever, however we characterize. I think that desire I think it's not a desire for necessarily for affordable housing, it's not just for their housing to be more affordable.
Yeah,
And so I think there is a distinction there that we probably need to make sure we understand.
the other thing I recall, that was a good point, was the traffic section didn't get to safety or traffic safety much, and I remember that was the feedback when we were going through the, I can't remember it.
Transportation plan.
Not the plan, but the thing the new policy we
Zero.
have.
Oh, traffic calming.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that safety wasn't really
Hmm.
called out enough in the survey for traffic, like it's about like movement, ease of,
Getting
Pedestrian.
around,
yeah, but,
sidewalks.
so that might be something to talk to Angela and the public safety team if they want to double click on what questions do we add, or even the vendor may have new questions for traffic safety from other communities that we could plop in here.
And then hopefully, the community doesn't have survey fatigue from
Yeah.
the school
the
building
last two.
surveys.
Yeah.
Cycling through over the last year, because there have been a lot this year, and we haven't had that in the past to kind of
point.
compete with our participation.
I think,
And it may be nothing, or we may see a sign.
I think that's the reason why we really want to promote
Yep.
leading up to it,
There you
that, again, people's opinions really do matter here, and they really are influential, and
Yep.
so
Yeah.
you're really encouraged to be engaged, to participate.
I have an idea, now that you
Sure.
said that, just making me think of more work.
You never.
Yeah, well, I know, I love your timeline and I think that is the right timeline, but we've never really tried to use election day maybe as a means for this, so I'd be curious if we were to like have computers set up on election day to say, oh, take the
Mhm.
survey. We can still do the normal, like,
Statistically
yeah,
valid.
that would have been complete, but do we get uptick if we put it on election tables? Will people stop and,
Or even if we just had like a big poster with the QR code on it.
Yeah.
Just literally ask every single person, if you haven't had, if you didn't take the paper survey, will you take it
Yeah.
now on your, on your phone?
yeah, we came to vote, your vote still
Yeah,
matters, take
yep,
our survey.
yep.
Yeah,
And we can talk to ETC about that.
I can hear you in my ear now.
Yeah.
You came to vote, take our survey. You came to vote, take our survey.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can talk to ETC about that. I expect they'd be receptive to it.
Yeah.
Because the way this typically works is they do their statistically valid, and then once they reach their threshold, which is, 800 plus surveys,
Yeah.
they close that out, and then they open up the sort of,
Yep.
anyone can take it who didn't get it.
Yeah.
And they could probably leave that open because those results are always kind of delayed anyway.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see though, even, the relationship between the statistically valid survey and the completely voluntary survey, they usually track with it.
Very
a percentage
close.
point.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
Shows
They
that
have in the
the
past been
validity
very
of the-
close.
And
Yeah.
which is always interesting, because I think the concern with surveys is you're gonna have someone
Right, you're
stuff the
gonna- yeah,
ballot box
target.
with. Someone's gonna take the survey 1,000 times and
Right.
totally sway the findings, and it just hasn't been
Yeah.
the case to date.
I think the fatigue factor, though, to April's point, is probably a risk to this year, so
We'll
maybe
see.
just by extending it, we could give people an option, like, while they're voting, just take the survey.
Yeah,
But
well, they also leave it open as long as it takes to get the number that they need, so. It
Yeah.
might just take
That's
a little
true.
bit longer than as in the past.
That's true, the statistical
Right.
portion.
Yeah,
of it.
and maybe we should be more
That just
creative
happened.
about ways of getting people to take it.
my hope would be that the statistically valid portion usually only takes 3 or 4 weeks
Yeah.
to meet the threshold. So if we launch in September, that's really early October, but this idea of leaving it open for a period of time, or maybe even opening it, delaying it and having it open for 3 weeks before election day and closing on election day,
Mhm.
then they can start generating a lot of that raw data. They don't do the same level of
Yeah.
analysis for that,
Right.
so it's really just here's what
Yeah.
the rest of the group said.
I think that would be cool.
So that's our introduction on the survey.
Item 7 is council reporter themes and assignments. It's been a long time since I was on the comms committee, but since I am here, I want to take the opportunity to put this on and see if there was appetite from the committee to do a counselor corner, either late
Live.
summer, yeah, counselor corner live.
Mhm.
And then also to, set us up and make sure that you guys have articles that you need for the print version too.
Mhm. So I think we have, for the print version, we have Corey doing the next
A
one
recap of
Okay, yeah.
of the workshop.
Yep.
And then Karen is slated to go next with, I don't know if there was a specific topic, but she's on the list, and then Bill was gonna go after that.
Okay.
So we at
Great.
least have coverage for the next 3, and summertime's usually the hardest because people
Yep.
check out.
Yep.
I don't know, Scott, if you wanna be the 4th one, so that would be,
Yeah.
what would that be?
August 15th.
August 15th. And then. Though technically, I guess, maybe we can,
Sorry, I have my dates, because the next one is June 15th, right?
15 is Corey,
Okay, then yeah,
and then Karen for 6 or 7-1.
7-1.
and then
7:15
Bill
is
for
Bill.
7:15.
We may wanna have the new counselor do an
Do an
intro
intro.
and then go to
Okay.
Scott. So
For
then-
August 1 could be new counselor intro.
Yeah.
And then Scott. I think Bill was thinking of using the 7:15 one to talk about the school. If the decision, like assuming the decision's been made, like he would talk a little bit about that. So that at least kind of gives coverage, and then you can start over.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
But yeah, I do think we should do a counselor corner live. I don't know what we're gonna talk about or where the conversation of the workshop is gonna go, but. We do need to think of public engagement on whatever our housing stuff is, so. That might be a good first thing of like, hey, we had a workshop, we talked about stuff,
Mhm.
no decisions are made yet, so.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts and. We can. Use that to continue to build wherever we wanna go with the housing work.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you think about? Counselor, you've never done a Counselor Corner Live,
No.
so it's essentially where, we put a topic out, usually there, it's not like a detailed topic. In the past, we said, let's talk about growth, let's talk about conservation. And people just come and it's very informal, where usually we have at least two counselors there, usually it's the committee who would be there. And just facilitate the conversation with the crowd and let people talk about what they want to talk about, let people talk with each other, talk to the council. And it doesn't really turn into like significant action, it's just more like, let's just listen and hear what they have to say.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And that's just in chambers, like it's a
Mhm.
public
Yeah.
meeting?
Yep, we've done it here, and we've done it at the Public Safety Building. It's not great for people who wanna participate online, because it's tough with our technology to hear, and yeah. So we really have encouraged people to, if you want to come in person, and so I like using the Public Safety Building, cause that's a really big classroom. But it doesn't,
I like it over there too, because we had talked about when it's in chambers, it's more formal.
formal, yeah,
Mhm.
And so if it's
Yeah.
in a different space, like over there, it just feels more,
Relax.
yeah,
Yeah.
and inviting and less intimidating. People don't have to go up to a podium, when you
Yeah.
literally just sit in a circle.
Yeah.
Circle, just
Yep.
talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We did have the facilitated one on the school as well, which is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exercise, yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the one I missed.
But yeah, I think it'd be good, maybe, I don't know when though. July, or you're thinking late July? The other
That's one
thing
of your
might be the
goals, right?
school. Like, it doesn't have to be on housing, it could be on the school as well, if that,
I think the school, I mean, we could, I suspect that the school is gonna be having their own
Yeah.
forums and, you know, talk. I think the only place really that the council would have a role in that is just deciding what's gonna go to ballot. And I would love to have that conversation with the public. I don't know if that's enough to drive
Yeah.
a whole Counselor Corner Live.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
ha-
if
affordable housing would
I
draw
think-
people.
I do too. I think housing, and I think whatever the week of our council meeting, maybe,
In July,
yeah,
or is it the third week we meet that week?
yeah. So it would be the week of the 6th to the 14th is a Monday.
So we could do the 17th, because we usually, or does that interfere with the board meeting? Or does
It
it
would be
matter?
on the same, yeah, it would interfere with the school board meeting.
I think we should just pencil it in and do it
Sure,
15th, maybe then the
sure. We
Tuesday.
could do Tuesday.
Do we want to just tentatively plan for affordable housing and,
I think it's a great topic. When
Yeah.
you're talking about affordable or workforce or senior. I think the idea of these sort of housing with some parameters on it, I think it's a good
Mhm.
conversation. I think there's a lot of confusion too, when you talk about affordable or income, how those things are determined and who it really applies to it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, lack of information.
Yeah.
I think the other suggestion, I don't know what it is, but going back to looking at your goals for this year, is there anything else that you haven't made measurable progress on that requires some community input? And that might be, or maybe if not July, then if you want to do another one in September. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion too.
I feel like we've done them for a lot of them. Like we did a conservation one, I don't know if we need to do another one. Long range planning facilities. Traffic and transportation, I don't think we'll need to do again. So the housing one seems like the most opportune one.
Yeah.
The other one is the long range facilities planning that gets into the school. I almost feel like that's a conversation after the school goes to ballot to say. We still have a community center, the library has plans. We still have other facilities needs, so like, I don't know if we would wanna punt that till later.
I wonder if, And some of your, because I think there's probably some goal or objective around finances and budget or. I think it won't, maybe not. I think that'd be an interesting topic to have as well with the community about. There's been so much conversation with a few people. Since I've been here around how much debt Scarborough has and what our ability is to take on new debt. That actually might be an interesting subject paired with the school referendum. So if you had a subject like that in September, like understanding our municipal finances or understanding kind of our current state of our municipal whatever. Obviously, it's on the heels of some really good news over the last year with regard to the audit and fund balance, but I think having kind of a conversation from with the community about, this is really what our capacity is to take on these significant capital projects, and that might be an interesting one. That's not directly saying it's related to the school. It's sort of sidestepping that and talking about this stuff, but it's off budget cycle, which is nice.
Yeah.
It might be sort of a lower temperature opportunity to have a conversation about where we sit financially from a municipal standpoint.
I like that idea. I think that's a good idea for September.
So let's talk finances.
I feel like it has to be more. Like that, if I saw that, I'd be like, oh, I don't wanna do that, but.
I was gonna let you two figure out how you wanna spin that, and make
I
that
like
sound super fun.
Spending's out of control. Let's talk about
Let's talk
spending.
about this greedy town.
Yeah. Was that your
Yeah,
title?
red lines,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's talk about spending. It might be, like, I could see people.
Yeah.
Leaning into like, yeah, I do wanna talk about spending and
Yeah.
show up and, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you. It's real simple and to the point. If we have enough money to build new schools and community centers and stuff, our taxes are too high. It's as simple as that. I mean, so if you say, hey, we can afford this, it's like, well, then we should lower our taxes, because if we have that much money. I heard the other day they're gonna get a new fireboat down at Pine Point, and it's like $200 and some $1,000 for a skiff. It's like, what? I mean, what they have is fine, so I don't know if this is something's happening but if they have that much money in their budget is too high. Anyway.
But
So, yeah.
I think in addition to budget and spending, I think there's an opportunity to talk about, how, bonding and debt service. And I think there's probably an opportunity to work in why we do TIFs. What's the, you talk about
The
Impact. fees.
conversation, impact fees, the conversation, the emails that we got around the Marshview project clearly to me indicate that people do not understand what TIFs are, the mechanism for why they would be beneficial, and then also are not sure about how to differentiate them from CEAs either.
That took me like 2
And
years.
I know, it's so, and trying to write it or boil it down into 3 or 4 simple sentences to respond to a resident who has sent like a very passionate email to me, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this justice at all. And so much better in person and to be able to have it be a conversation than trying to stick it in an email.
That's definitely something that should be brought up.
Yeah.
At a public meeting and explained.
Yeah.
Because I still don't get it either.
I think it'd be a great topic because your most successful, in my opinion, Councilor Corner live events were the ones that again didn't come in with a specific proposal or something that was baked or just looking for responses. Let's have a broad open conversation about this very broad topic and see where it goes.
Yeah. The other thing that I've been noticing myself having to explain to people, like we're getting a lot of emails on things where people come to the council. That's not really our ability to do anything. Like we've been with this Marshview stuff. A lot of people are asking us to not approve it. And I'm like, if it's zoned, then it's really not up to us at this point. If you have concerns about things that the planning board has jurisdiction over, you should definitely go talk to the planning board. So I've been like, for the emails we've been getting for some people talking about the project, we only got a couple. I'm trying to explain to them.
Yeah, me too.
Like what our
What the
role is.
channel
Yeah.
is, channel command.
And then even with the animal control thing, like that's so not ready for council yet. It's okay for people to email us to share their opinion now, but really who they need to be talking to at this moment is the ordinance committee members, and so. Fine to email us, but like, I don't know if people understand
The process.
the process, and so I don't know if there's like. A future council corner, I think affordable housing, finances, those are the first two, but. How do we help people understand how better to engage and who engage with when they have something that they wanna talk about?
I think this topic literally comes up every single time
Yeah.
we talk about this, right? And
Yeah.
then we always kind of decide like, I don't
It's
know,
boring.
is there enough engagement on engagement
Yeah.
to drive a counselor corner live, like,
Yeah.
and so then I think we end up always, something takes priority and we haven't done it, but we have definitely
Yeah.
suggested that that would be so helpful
Yeah.
for our residents multiple times. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
trying to figure out whether or not people would come to that.
Well, maybe it's not a counselor corner live, but maybe there's a different thing that we could partner with staff on like. How to help. Educate the public on the decision process and how things generally work. Cause I think a lot of times things come to us. Pretty baked, and there's been opportunity at different places for people to shape it.
At the podium, I think.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's just an opportunity to say. If you wanna participate in your government, here's how you can do it at different stages, and if you. Wait till the point where it's in front of council. Like typically, it's not that we can't say no or can't vote no, but it's
Yeah.
usually like, we've been exposed to different things, we have different information. And if they're just getting it from like one article or one Facebook post. That's like, you're kind of deciding to engage pretty far down the path, which. Makes it hard to,
Those are also kind of reflecting points for me at least of like. When something escalates and I feel like I haven't talked about it enough, that makes me realize like, what could I have caught earlier on so that maybe people are only engaging at that moment because that's the first they're hearing about it, you
Yeah.
know?
that's usually the case.
Yeah, it's usually once it gets on the council agenda, and even though it was an ordinance or was being talked about in other committees, like. It wasn't flagged as something that the town put more communications around, so. Yeah, I could see that, and I could also see, like what you're saying for reminding people about different public engagement opportunities, like. We did like a video series or like just like social media campaign around that. I don't know how much like response that would get, but at least it would. Give us sort of a refresher of where to point people back to. Or something on our website that explains that process, cause I don't really think we have. That sort of background anywhere on our website even.
I've seen, in other community newsletters, I've seen these sort of columns where, it's like ask the manager something, or, maybe ask a counselor something, where you sort of take the, I'm sure some of them are. But it's like, this is the question of the day,
Yeah.
why is the council considering, affordable housing development in Dunstan, when, like, that's the background, and then you give like a kind of detailed explanation for why that is, like. A developer can come forward with a request for a contract zone, doesn't mean the council is gonna approve it, doesn't mean they support it. But that's where I've talked to people individually about this, I mean, that's probably my biggest frustration, is when there's this outrage for the process,
Right.
And it's like. And so I think, I would be willing to entertain something that, whether it's ask the chair or ask the town council or ask the manager. Whatever the question is, and include that for some educational outreach. I think that'd be an interesting series.
Yeah, and I think it would get better attention if it was around a certain topic. So it was relevant rather than just like, here's what the process is.
Sure.
Unrelated, like more like instructional or something.
And I've talked to Alice at Bristol,
Yeah.
how, it's like how a bill becomes a law, it's like,
Yeah.
how does something become an ordinance, and it's like this
Yeah,
trickle down effect.
Hmm.
so I love the idea of like. As part of like the newsletter, a feature on Ask Them Whomever. How do people submit the question? You guys pick one.
Yeah, I mean, we could also just like. Think of questions that
Yeah.
are like comment questions,
Yeah,
but yeah, it could be an engagement opportunity of like, we have an open poll or something.
yeah,
And we pick ones that seem to be like good for responding to.
yeah,
I mean, even on Instagram, you can put like an open box for people to submit questions. And not everyone sees what they are, but it would give us like something.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I love the idea of like a ask the council thing, and then we could always do like a video. Short video on Facebook, that's just like,
Week, right?
yeah.
This
Each
week's
council-
Ask the Counselor.
Ask the counselor was, why, blah, blah, and you can pick some
Right,
fun ones, too,
right,
like if it's kids and
absolutely,
it's one
yeah.
that's like,
I mean, that could also be a cool way to use the council corner article section.
Yeah.
Is if you wanted to mix it up a little bit, we could do like a ask the counselor.
yeah.
I still want to launch a podcast that's after,
Yeah.
council, was it council after hour or like?
Yeah.
after that, just sit- And then we just sit down for like 5 minutes and someone gets to explain their vote, you know, some,
Yeah.
that'd be a really interesting segment too.
Yeah,
But lots of great ideas, it's just, you know.
Time, yeah.
Well, 'cause, like I say, the committees, a lot of times are special interest groups, and it doesn't necessarily reflect what the town wants, so we go by what the committees say, and they get together and they come up with this, they have this powwow, they're a special group that wants this certain thing. And then the public, when it comes down, the public's like, what the heck? No, we don't want that.
Mhm.
So the committees have to realize too, that just, your wish list is whatever, but it may, once it goes before the people, they might squash it.
Yeah,
So if you wanna put a whole bunch of time into this is fine, but don't expect it to pass.
That's where the council comes in, right? You're
Right,
elected by your
right,
constituents to
right,
represent the
right,
interests and,
Right,
you know, one person's, you know, special interest groups, another person's engaged, informed.
right,
dedicated
Representative,
volunteers,
yeah.
right? And
right,
so,
right, sure,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
but ideally we would get ahead of those things and say, let's not. Before we get there, because I think that is partially our role as the liaison, is to be like, how is this gonna play out with the general public?
Right,
And it's not because, the committees aren't full of good people, it's more,
sure. Oh, yeah.
you know, to your point, a lot of them are dedicated volunteers who have
Yeah.
this passion about the topic.
Yeah.
But you gotta also remember that I view them as like a mini focus group in a way, but they're not like representing the public. We try and select people, I think, to get a good
Right,
representation, but it isn't, like, they don't represent the public, we do, so we have to like use that judgment
Right.
and guide them sometimes when we're going down that path.
Balance.
Well,
Great. Item 8 is future agenda items. I think we laid them out during the course of our discussion.
You mentioned
Yeah.
Summerfest outreach. I think that would be helpful to kind of brainstorm what some ideas are to really try to maximize.
well, my daughter has a whole plan.
Okay,
for friends.
perfect. Bring her in.
No, well, she and her friends, because she helped me last year with the coloring, and that really drew.
Yeah,
kids
that's like,
over,
and it
she-
matches the
yeah.
theme of Summerfest.
Yeah, she wants to do slime making.
Okay,
So-
cool.
I think it would be fun to like have our kids, or anybody we know who wants to help, like usually we have the booth that's like there to hand stuff out and talk. But if there's an activity that's happening,
And well, I was thinking too, it's leading up to the survey, if there's some sort of like mini fun survey that could be happening at that table.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like give a heads up that the survey is coming.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just asking the kids, like I loved when the school was doing it the first time,
Through their school, through
Yeah.
their dream school.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
We had
good,
water
yeah.
slides and
yeah.
floating
Mm-hmm.
balloon parks and
Mm.
all kinds of great stuff.
Cause the way to get parents over, like that was
Yeah.
my plan, I was like, they're
Yeah.
gonna color, so I can talk to their parents,
Right.
and then. So
It would
having them do.
It would just
something.
be helpful for me to know like what sort of materials I should have handy for you guys
Gotta
at the
make
table.
slime.
Yeah,
Just kidding. But yeah, I think that we could talk about that next meeting.
Yeah.
And then. I mean, I think everything we did this one was good. We probably need to plan for the, Counselor Corner, not plan, but like, make sure we're aligned on,
Okay,
We
because
do
it'll be the week
Corner Live.
before the Council Corner Live.
oh, cause it's, sorry, it would be
July.
July, yeah.
July 15th, right, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Then you wanna do public safety?
Well, when is our committee meeting?
It will be before that.
First week of July,
Well, second week, but it
second.
will be,
The 10th? The 9th? When do you guys usually meet?
I thought we usually met on the third,
Thursday.
Thursday.
oh, right.
Yeah, it has been
Oh,
the third.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be after that, that'd be the 17th.
Maybe we can talk about it now, just to kind
Yeah, I think we're good.
of
Just let it
public
rip.
safety.
I'll announce it tonight after the workshop.
Yeah. Here we
So
go,
we're gonna talk.
Tuesday, July 15th
at
at 6 p.m. Public Safety Building.
Why don't you hold off on the location just so until I can confirm its availability?
That's not fun.
That's fine, right? I'll get an answer on
And then we'll continue to talk about the survey. Will we, I remember last time we kind of like went through and like looked at the questions and like broke it down. Do you think we'll do that again or?
that. I guess it'd just be
Okay.
helpful if everyone, and Scott, we can get you a printed copy too, so you can go through and, but I think to the degree you have strong opinions about removing things or adding things. I'd like to at least get the things you want to add or the subjects, because that's gonna require probably some discussion and workshopping, so it'd be great if you could have for the next meeting. These are, we need to rework the growth section. Here's how I suggest, here's how we want to repackage that. That would be helpful.
Mhm.
Maybe if that happens between now and the next meeting, that'd be good.
Okay. Is there a way, an easy way in the survey to show which ones are like the standard ones that EC,
And which ones we,
yeah,
yeah.
because I'm assuming the standard ones we don't wanna
I bet
change.
Jason. might
Yeah,
have
I
that
think Jason could do
information.
that. He could probably flag them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cause
Because-
the survey, the vendor we use, he does the same question so that we compare it to the region and the country. So keeping some the same allows us to say, for this question, we're scoring much better than the region and much better than the nation. The takeaway when you look at the survey, if you haven't looked at it, is like, and 90% of the questions, our town is scoring better than the region, better than the nation. The one that we were the worst at was, I think, the town council question, where
Yeah.
it's like.
Faith in the town council.
Bad, like, great. So, yeah.
Real moment of pride.
Yeah. But the survey overall was great, just we suck. Yeah.
So if we're meeting end of July and then end of August, so by the end of August one, we'll probably be
Wrapping
kind
it
of
up.
ready to
Ready
launch,
to launch.
right?
Yeah, we'll have-
So- Do you think by end of July, we could have like a draft survey?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I think there's some work that needs to go into it, but we're not talking about tearing it up and
Yeah.
redoing everything.
Mhm.
So I think there are really some just key areas that we're probably already somewhat familiar with.
Last time you guys polled the council, and I don't think many people gave much feedback,
I
so,
think there's very little feedback.
yeah.
I know staff will have some, especially again on the growth and transportation and traffic. I think there will be some interest in
Okay.
revamping that stuff, so. I'll try to get those staff comments pulled together in advance of your next meeting, so we can see if it's in line with what you're thinking as well.
Great.
Great. If that is everything, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.